Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're starting a new project, specifically a mobile app. The project we're starting today is a DVC calculator, or Disney Vacation Club. Disney Vacation Club is something you can buy into to reserve your hotel stays. You buy some number of points that you pick, and then you can use those points to reserve rooms at the Disney resorts. Disney creates these point charts that give you all the information that you need, but they're just not super intuitive to read, and it takes some work to figure out how much your vacation is going to cost in points. Not to mention, if you want to compare costs, you have to look at a point chart for each and every one of the resorts you want to consider. I got sick of looking at these point charts, so I actually created my own DVC calculator website. So this project won't exactly be new, but it's an adaptation of this website into a mobile app. Let's look at the website to see my starting point. So I think it's pretty intuitive. You select your resort that you want to stay at. You pick the room type. And then you pick a view type, you put in your dates, and then you calculate, and it says you will need 213 points for this stay. So it does exactly what I wanted it to do. This is much easier than going back to my point chart and saying, okay, for September, I know I want to stay a week in a 1-bedroom, 213. So using my calculator is certainly easier than trying to navigate that point chart, especially if I want to compare. Now, instead of opening up a new spreadsheet to compare resorts, I can pin the points so I know that, okay, my 1-bedroom at the Riviera is 213 points, but if I want to compare Old Key West to that for a 1-bedroom, a standard view for the same dates, it's only going to cost me 150, and I can still look here and see my points for Riviera. So this does what I want it to do, but I believe there's a little bit of room for improvement. So the issues I have with this mostly come down to user experience. I just don't think it's a great user experience to have to click through all of these things before they even make their one request. And if they have to change the date, it's an even worse experience. Because say I want to, oh, never mind, I want to go check June. I'd have to come back over here and change the end date all the way back to June as well. And then calculate, and there we go. So I think the user experience can be improved here. So I've got a few ideas to help. Instead of requiring the user to provide the resort, the room type, the view type, the check-in date, the checkout date, I want to have the user supply as little information as needed to get them as much data as I can. I do really like that point pinning solution, but if I'm able to give the user all of the information for every resort from one request, I don't think I'm going to actually need that anymore. And that date selection has got to be better. So as you might guess, I have an API for this project already, but I need to add a new endpoint to accept just the dates and return the point breakdown for every room in every resort. Let's check out the changes I made to accomplish that. Before we check out the code, I want to go over the structure of the database a little bit. I have a resorts table. Each resort has several different room types, which room type is also a different table. And each room type can have different view types, which view types is also a different table. Then for each view type, there is a point value that's associated with that view type and a date range. So given that structure, let's take a look at the code that I have. Hold on to your eyeballs. Okay, so I added a new endpoint that just takes the begin date and end date. And then down here, this is a rough idea of the response that I'm going to be sending back. So it's going to have this resorts tab, and then there will be an array of these resort objects which have room types, which have view types, and then inside that view type, it's going to have, I think I missed one here, there's going to have the view type ID, view type name, and then this dates will have an array of the objects for each individual date. The date will be, or the night that you're staying, and the points will be the points that it costs to stay that night. There's also going to be a total points value for all of the dates. So this is still a slight work in progress, so there might be some comments and filler code that won't be there in the final draft. But first thing we're going to do is get all of the resorts, and then for each of the resorts we're going to have a resort array, which will end up being this response resorts. And then for each resort in the resorts, we're going to get all of the room types for that resort, which we have to make another call to do that, and then build a room type array for that resort. And for each one of the room types in that list, we have to find all the view types. And then for each of those view types, we have another view type array, which maps to that response object. And then for each view type, we build that dates object, and we keep track of the points total. And while the current date, which starts at the begin date, while that's still less than the end date, we fetch the points for the night, which this basically checks that point value correlation I was talking about earlier with the view type and a date range. So it gets that amount for that day, and it pushes a new object to this dates array that has the date, which is the current date that we use to get our point value, that point value, and then we just increment the current date and go back through the loop. So we loop through until we get to the checkout day. And then once we create this whole dates array, we're pushing into the view type array now with the view type ID, view type name, the total points needed for the entire stay, and then we're pushing back all of the dates that break down how much each night costs to stay. Once we're done with every view for the room type, we push to the room type array, the room type ID, the name, and the view type array. Finally, we push, when we're done with all of the room types, we push to the resort array with the resort ID, the resort name, and the room type array. And then we set that resort array to the resorts object on the response object and send that status back. You'll notice that I'm not doing error handling really. This is pretty proof of concept-y kind of stuff, so I do need to come back and add error handling and stuff like that. But this is the general idea, and like I said before, hold on to your eyeballs. If you have a better idea for this, or there's better ways for me to implement this exact structure or this exact flow, please, if you have constructive criticism, throw it in the comments below. I'd love to have a conversation about it and learn something new. So that's basically the changes that I needed to make for the API to make it do what I want it to do. So let's take a look at some designs I put together for screens on this app. So the home screen on the app is going to look quite a bit like my website. You put in your data and you hit calculate, and that's really about it. The difference is, though, I'm envisioning that only the date range will be a required field, and I might even remove these fields and move it to filter on the next screen. The first iteration will probably be give me a date range, I'll calculate it and give you everything back. So let's go look at the results screen. But I'm envisioning this will look something kind of like this, where we have the results that come back for a given date, and then this up here is meant to be like filtering. But again, that's probably not something that will be implemented in the first iteration. Have these results grouped together by the resort, and then split up into the room types. And then inside that, you'll see a view type, and then that combination for this resort will be this cost for these dates. And then you can click on the details and it will expand to see each day and how much each day costs. It will continue to show all of the other room types and view type combinations for that resort. Then after it's displayed all of the room and view type combinations for a resort, it will just move on to the next resort and do that same thing. I like this design. It gives the user a bunch of information so they don't have to click a ton of buttons to get data back onto their app. And then they'll be able to add filters to this result set to narrow down what they're looking at so they can compare and shop for the resort that they want. So I've got the back end ready to go. Now I just need to work on the UI for the app. Stay tuned so you guys can see that. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll talk to you later.